In the quiet folds of sleep, as the world drifts into hush, the brain does something beautiful. It begins to hum with patterns of calm, releasing waves that are slower, softer, and deeply harmonious. One of the most soothing mysteries is this: even in complete rest, the brain remains gently active, like a lighthouse casting steady glows across a silent sea. It never truly sleeps. And yet, it leads the body into slumber, like a lullaby made of silence. How can something so intricate help us surrender so easily to stillness? Within the resting brain lives a rhythm, ancient and quiet, known as the alpha wave. These gentle pulses rise when the eyes close and the world fades from view, creating a sanctuary of calm behind the eyelids. Alpha waves are most abundant when the body is still but the mind is at peace, such as in daydreaming or just before sleep. They sweep across the brain like ripples over a moonlit pond, signaling safety, tranquility, and the soft onset of dreams. In this state, the edges of thought blur, and the inner world begins to glow with its own soft light. Beneath this alpha calm, another rhythm begins to whisper. It is called the theta wave, and it arrives like a gentle tide during the first drops of sleep. Theta waves are slower still, like a soft breath spreading through the folds of consciousness. In this twilight state, memories dissolve into dreams, and creativity flows without effort. The brain, now adrift in its deepest comfort, begins to weave images, sounds, and feelings into seamless visions. This is where time bends, where one moment stretches into many, and where the mind explores without direction, like a paper boat on a still lake, carried only by the current of its own wonder. As the brain journeys deeper into rest, a gentle symphony of delta waves begins to rise. These are the slowest and most profound rhythms of the sleeping mind, emerging only in the deepest valleys of slumber. Delta waves are like distant thunder from beyond the mountains of thought, rolling slowly and carrying with them the body's deepest healing. During this stage, the brain releases growth hormones, repairs the tissues of the day, and restores energy, cell by cell. The noise of consciousness fades entirely here, leaving behind a vast, quiet expanse where time and thought no longer mark their presence. In this suspended stillness, the brain is not busy, but beautifully silent, like a cathedral made of silence and stars. Even in its deepest sleep, the brain listens. A faint watchfulness remains, tucked away in an ancient part of the mind called the reticular formation. This sentinel of the brain stem stays quietly alert, listening for sounds that might matter, like a mother hearing her baby stir in the dark. But its grip is gentle. It allows dreams to bloom while guarding the edges of awareness, like a faint flicker of moonlight catching on the edge of a cloud. This is why a soft sound can wake us, while thunder might pass unnoticed. The brain, like a wise guardian, knows what to hold on to and what to let drift past, like leaves on a nighttime stream. In the shadows of sleep, memories begin a quiet dance. The hippocampus, that gentle archivist within the brain, stirs softly during rest. Like a careful librarian by candlelight, it gathers fragments of the day and slips them into the deep shelves of memory. While the body rests, the brain reorganizes experience, selecting what to keep and what to quietly let go. Dreams sometimes echo this work, offering strange montages that feel both familiar and surreal. These nocturnal rewrites help us remember, make sense, and sometimes forget. Sleep, it seems, is not just a pause but a sacred retelling of our lives, told in whispers only the sleeping mind can understand. In this nightly restoration, glial cells, the brain's quiet caretakers, come alive. While neurons may steal the spotlight in stories of thought and sensation, it is the glial cells that sweep and tend the neural landscape once sleep descends. Their task is tender, yet essential. to wash away the metabolic traces left behind after a waking day. Using a gentle pulse of cerebral fluid, they rinse the brain's pathways, like spring rain softening dusty trails. This cleansing, known as the glymphatic flow, happens most effectively during deep sleep, when the curtains of consciousness are drawn and the stage of waking life is at rest. In this hushed choreography, the brain undergoes a nightly renewal, its delicate tissue bathed in clarity, preparing for the rise once more of morning thought. There is a quiet secret nestled deep within the folds of the resting brain, a secret that speaks in pulses and whispers. It is the default mode network, a constellation of regions that glimmer to life when focus fades and the mind slips inward. Unlike task-driven circuits, the default mode is a gentle wanderer, embracing the drift of memories, imaginings, and inner monologues. In slumber, this network hums softly, crafting delicate tapestries from the raw fabric of feeling and thought. It is here that past and future meet in reverie, where the soul quietly revisits once felt joys or rehearses silent hopes. The default mode network is not loud, not direct. It is the lull between insights, the soft murmur of thought not meant to be heard but only felt, and it seems to be most alive when the world grows still. Far beneath the conscious mind lies a quiet architect, carefully shaping the emotional terrain of our dreams. It is the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster, often known for fear, but during sleep it becomes a weaver of feeling. In the dreaming hours, it lights up not in panic but in poetry, coloring visions with shades of longing, joy, wonder, and sometimes sorrow. The dreaming brain does not merely show us stories, it lets us feel them. This is where emotions find new forms, freed from logic and daylight's order. The amygdala plays its part like a painter in the night, brushing forgotten colors onto imagined skies, letting us feel things we cannot name in waking hours. The result is not always clear, not always calm, but infused with meaning that stretches beyond reason, like a whisper from deep within the soul seeking to be known. Layered quietly within the hemispheres, nestled like a pearl in a sea of thought, lives the pineal gland, sometimes called the seat of the soul. While science walks carefully around such titles, the truth remains dreamlike. This tiny organ, shaped like a pine cone and no larger than a grain of rice, holds a gentle command over the rhythms of night and day. It is here that melatonin is released, a silky chemical that drapes the mind in drowsiness. As darkness falls and daylight closes its eyes, the pineal gland serenades the body into surrender. Under its influence, the inner world softens, the senses begin to blur, and the edges of waking thought slowly melt away. It is a quiet invitation, not shouted but whispered, asking the mind to enter the soft fields of sleep where time forgets itself and only stillness remains. In slumber's gentle grasp, another quiet phenomenon unfolds, one both subtle and astonishing. During the deepest stages of sleep, the cortex of the brain engages in a process called synaptic homeostasis. Like a gardener pruning branches at dawn, the brain trims down the clutter of overgrown connections, preserving only what is strong and meaningful. All through the day, neurons form countless links in response to sights, sounds, and thoughts. But in the warm hush of night, the brain reevaluates them, letting go of weak or unnecessary ties. This tender act of refinement maintains balance, preventing overwhelm and clearing space for new learning ahead. It is not a violent cutting, but a compassionate choosing, shaped by the soft logic of dreams. The sleeping brain, in its wisdom, knows that forgetting is as vital to peace as remembering, and chooses silence as a way back to clarity. Floating between these rhythms and whispers is a gentle conductor, unseen but ever-present, the autonomic nervous system. While sleep draws its silken curtain, this silent orchestrator adjusts breath, slows the heartbeat, and tempers body temperature, aligning every function with the slow cadence of rest. It is as if the body, led by the unseen hand of the brain, becomes a lullaby in motion, each breath a verse, each beat a chorus. This system, neither asked nor noticed, carries out its work with grace, ensuring that beneath the surface of dreams, everything flows as it should, and in the stillness, supported by this quiet harmony, the mind drifts deeper into the safe, unmarked night. And yet, one of the gentlest wonders of the brain's quiet voyage is that it never repeats a night exactly. Each descent into sleep is a fresh exploration, a soft descent down familiar pathways that always feel new. The firing patterns, the shifting dreams, the emotional hues, all are part of a living map that redraws itself nightly. No two dreams are the same. No two nights carry the same balance of memory, cleansing, or reflection. And so, sleep becomes a nightly improvisation, a silent symphony of mind and matter gently rehearsed in darkness, played always for the first and last time. In this repetition without sameness, the brain reminds us that rest is not just escape, but creation, a renewal shaped in silence under the kind guidance of mystery. As the stars wheel overhead, the brain sleeps, but also becomes. Somewhere within the dreamy architecture of the brain lies a soft magnet for faces. Even while we sleep, this network, known as the fusiform face area, remains quietly, acutely tuned to expressions. It is as if, in dreams, our mind still seeks eyes to meet and emotions to read, continuing a deep-rooted pattern of recognition that has guided us since infancy. Faces in dreams may be blurred or unfamiliar, yet the emotional truth behind them often feels real. This attentiveness to faces speaks to how deeply social we truly are. Even in solitude, even in slumber, the brain does not fully turn away from others. It carries their presence into our inner nightscape, painting them in shadows and memory. Like flickers on the walls of a cave, our dream people appear not only as reflections of the past, but also as whispers of connection. Our brain quietly cherishes when the world outside has faded away. Wrapped in this nighttime tapestry, we begin to see that the brain is not simply a machine winding down, but a vast and tender story written in silence. Its rhythms are not mechanical, but musical waves of thought and rest, echoing like the movements of celestial bodies across a star-flecked sky. Each night it returns to ancient patterns, sculpted by time and mystery, to sing the body to sleep and the mind into wonder. In the hush of sleep, the brain doesn't just rest, it dreams, it heals, it cleans, it remembers. It drifts through known and unknown, creating unity from fragments with each gentle breath. And with every journey into the quiet, it leaves behind a gift not easily noticed in the day. The calm knowing that even in stillness, something beautiful is always at work within us, guiding us softly from the edges of thought into the heart of the dream. And somewhere closer to the veil of waking, a final harmony begins to rise, the interplay of serotonin and melatonin, two messengers in this balancing act between light and dark. As dawn nears and shadows recede, serotonin gently returns, preparing the body to rise, to move, to feel the warmth of day once more. But in the quiet cycle that governed the night, it was melatonin that danced the slow, steady waltz through the hours of rest. These two allies, like twin lanterns passing each other in the twilight, ensure that the rhythm of sleep and the music of waking remain forever in balance. They do not clash, they converse in silence. It is this conversation, unfolding deep within the pulsing cathedral of the brain, that reminds us we are creatures not only of motion, but of stillness. And in that stillness, something sacred stirs the sense that the most powerful part of us does not always speak aloud, but listens, waits, and dreams in the language of stars. As the curtain of sleep falls once more, the brain leads a final gentle procession into the depths of rest, guided by the limbic system's quiet dance of emotion and memory. In this place, deep beneath thought and language, lies a tender choreography where feelings glide freely, unbound by the order of waking logic. This nightly drift softens rigid emotion, loosens the knots of sorrow, and lets joy bloom again, like moonflowers after dusk. Here, the brain does not solve but soothes, offering the weary heart a place to exhale without needing to understand. And just as oceans cleanse the shore with each tide, this nightly ebb washes over the inner world, smoothing even the sharpest edges of the day. In this way, the sleeping brain becomes more than just a resting organ. It becomes a sanctuary, a sacred hush where we are both held and healed, in silence more eloquent than any dream. Softly nested within the architecture of the brain is a whispering alliance between smell and sleep. In the recesses of the olfactory system, a curious truth unfolds. The sense of smell remains uncannily open, even when every other doorway to the world has gently shut. Scents, lingering and tender, float past the usual guards of wakefulness and enter the limbic labyrinth with ease, stirring memory and emotion like wind over still waters. Lavender, for instance, drifts through the night like an aromatic lullaby, its particles winding deep into the emotional centers, softening the muscles and quieting restless thoughts. This quiet openness explains why a single note of a beloved perfume in a dream or the imagined warmth of baking bread can evoke peace so profound it feels real. The dreaming brain listens like a cathedral to incense, not through ears, but through memory and feeling. It files each note of scent into its emotional archives, where even while we sleep, a fragrance becomes a lullaby, and the past becomes softly alive once more. In this ongoing symphony of rest, even silence has shape, and stillness has meaning. The sleeping brain, bathed in chemical tides and electrical quietude, becomes a gentle realm where science and wonder intersect. As the final notes of night play softly through the corridors of thought, a feeling arises not of ending, but of return. Each night is a descent into remembering what calm truly feels like, a reunion with the ancient rhythms that cradle every living thing. And so, as breath deepens and the world continues its slow spin beneath stars, the brain settles into its most profound role, not to command, not to calculate, but to simply be. In that being, peace unfolds effortless and deep, as though the universe itself has exhaled, and we, resting quietly within it, are carried gently into that hush, beyond thought, beyond time, into the stillness where all dreams begin. Beneath layers of awareness, folded like silk within the subconscious, lies a peculiar partnership between music and memory. The brain responds to lullabies not just as sound but as emotional time machines, reawakening feelings stored long ago. In sleep, musical fragments, whispers of a mother's hum, the soft echo of a distant song stir neural paths linked to reassurance and belonging. Even when silence reigns, the auditory cortex may still play back these remembered notes, quietly reweaving warmth into the tapestry of dreams. This subtle resonance is not imagined, it is the brain's quiet way of holding comfort in sound, carrying melodies like fragile lanterns through the corridors of night. Thus, music becomes woven not into thought, but into the architecture of safety, cradling us in unheard harmonies as we drift deeper into the quiet beyond words. Beyond our senses, in the heart of the brain's sleeping glow, lies a subtle phenomenon known as microdreaming. These are not the grand narratives of full dreams, but fleeting pulses of inner vision, lasting seconds or less. They occur in the transitional phases, those fragile thresholds where wakefulness begins to blur like ink in water. Microdreams shimmer in this liminal space, offering flashes of sound, sensation, or image, an imagined footstep, a voice from memory, a glimpse of something tenderly nostalgic. thought to emerge from a sudden dip into brief sleep or a neural spark misfiring gently in the quiet dark. These moments remind us that the boundary between wake and dream is as fluid as shadow across a floor. The brain, even as it approaches slumber, continues to speak in these soft fragments, slipping curious truths and delicate echoes through the cracks of consciousness, as if preparing the mind for the deeper dreams that follow. These microdreams are like brief taps on the shoulder from the subconscious, reminding us that even in silence, the soul is already sowing seeds of story. And alongside these whispers of sight and sound emerges touch, the most ancient of sensations, delicately lingering at the edge of slumber. In the brain's quiet sanctuary, the somatosensory cortex settles into serenity, its map of the body gradually dimming like a village slipping into dusk. Yet even as muscles loosen and external input fades, the brain softly holds an inner memory of warmth, of enfolding blankets, of soft surfaces, of a loved one's presence near. In dreaming, the memory of contact persists, not through factual recreation but through emotional echo. A caress may be imagined, a hand held that never truly arrived, and still the brain invokes its comfort with complete believability. This gentle phantom of sensation is the mind's final lullaby to the body, a felt impression of safety that bridges the physical and the imagined, helping the deepest part of us feel profoundly at home, no matter where sleep may carry us. There is one final wonder resting in the dim corridors of the sleeping mind, a phenomenon known as parasomnias, the surreal dances of behavior during sleep. Though often cloaked in mystery, these twilight movements, sleepwalking, murmured speech, or sudden sitting upright, are not disturbances but echoes of a mind still learning the language of deep rest. They rise from the space where sleep is not yet settled and waking hasn't truly gone, like mist caught between valleys. In children especially, these fleeting occurrences mark a brain still practicing the art of slumber, rehearsing its orchestration of transitions. Though they may seem strange, they are usually harmless, gentle artifacts of a beautifully complex sleep cycle. And as the night carries on, even these movements fold into deeper stillness, like a restless bird finally lowering its wings. For the sleeping brain, in all its layers and secrets, holds within it the grace to carry body and soul home to rest, even when the path there briefly meanders through dreams that move and stir. As the hush of nighttime deepens, entwined within the brain's gentle rhythms lies a flickering landscape known as hypnagogia, the fleeting, surreal threshold between wakefulness and sleep. In this liminal realm, fragments of thought, image, sound, and memory brush softly against each other, like fireflies in a twilight meadow. The logical mind begins to loosen its grip while the creative subconscious stirs, stepping forward without the weight of reason. Here, strange combinations bloom, a face fading into a staircase, a word turning into a bird, a tune that doesn't end. This is the cradle of insight and illusion alike, a sacred blur where dreams are first born and ideas drift untethered. Hypnagogia is neither fully dreaming nor entirely awake, yet it is more than both. A painter's palette of the mind's quietest impulses, where imagination stretches its limbs before slipping into the full embrace of night. In this gentle transition, the sleeping brain offers a final gift before true rest, a reminder that between knowing and unknowing, between silence and story, lies a space where wonder begins. Somewhere in the depths of the resting brain, the line between self and other begins to fade. This gentle erosion is guided by the temporoparietal junction, a region quietly involved in empathy, perspective, and the sense of body ownership. During sleep, its typical boundaries relax, allowing dreamers to slip between selves, to become the observer, the protagonist, or simply the breeze moving through a forgotten scene. This fluidity explains how, in dreams, we can touch another's sorrow as if it were our own, or speak truths we haven't yet dared to say aloud. Sleep grants safe passage to the multiplicity within us, asking nothing but surrender. And as the mind lets go of identity's sharp lines, it touches something more spacious and soft, a field of shared being, where no mask is needed and all roles are allowed. In this silent masquerade, the brain rehearses compassion, not as obligation but as instinct, folding love gently into the language of dreams. And cradled beneath these layers of nocturnal grace, the brain whispers its final lullabies through the portal of time itself. In dreams, the perception of time bends softly, flowing like mist along a forgotten garden path. Minutes may feel like hours, or flash away in seconds, with no fixed reference tethering thought to moment. This dream time is governed not by the ticking of clocks, but by the unfolding of emotion, sensation, and story, braided into patterns beyond logic. It is here that the mind detaches from day's procession and drifts into an eternal now, a gentle, timeless expanse where healing deepens and meaning emerges without the need for explanation. In this measureless realm, where yesterday and tomorrow dissolve like dew, the sleeping brain finds its truest refuge, not as a keeper of hours, but as a bearer of infinity humming quietly under the veil of sleep, singing the soul home to rest beneath the stars. In the very stillest hours, when even dreams begin to dissolve into haze, the brain offers one last act of quiet elegance, resensitization. It is the gentle return of awareness, not abrupt but gradual, like morning light pressing shyly against closed curtains. The thalamus, once drifting in low-frequency rhythms, begins to awaken, opening gates once closed to external sounds and sights. Yet in this moment, the brain does not switch on, it unfolds, slowly and reverently. Vivid dreams soften, drifting like petals across the surface of memory. The heart begins to beat a little fuller, the lungs to draw breath with new purpose. But still, for one fleeting instant, the veil remains half in sleep, half in waking. This final breath of night carries with it all the beauty of the brain's nightly passage, its healing, its dreaming, its quiet refusal to fully cease. And then, softly, the world returns not as an alarm but as a whisper, a gentle invitation to begin again, bathed in the calm only the sleeping brain could give. Within every night's sleep lies another quiet marvel, almost forgotten by waking minds, the circadian rhythm, the ancient clockkeeper ticking deep within the hypothalamus. This internal rhythm, older than memory, older than language, gently orchestrates the cycles of life with its breath-like pulses. Governed by light and darkness, it tells the body when to wind down and when to begin anew. But its influence doesn't end at sleep. It flows into temperature, hunger, hormone flow, and emotional tides, its beat echoing in every cell. During rest, this rhythm hums low, like a soft drum guiding the body's inner tides. It ensures that even in complete stillness, we remain in sync with the Earth's rotation, aligned with oceans and lunar pull. The circadian rhythm is not a tyrant but a guide, circling back endlessly, reminding us each night to yield, to rest, to restore. In this partnership with the turning world, the brain finds a rhythm not of thought, but of being ancient, effortless, and eternally in tune with the soft heartbeat of time itself. Tucked within these living rhythms and ancient patterns is a quiet brilliance, the brain's ability to rehearse learning while in repose. Known as sleep-dependent memory consolidation, this process allows knowledge, motor skills, and insights to settle more deeply during slumber. It is why a piano melody practiced by day becomes smoother overnight, and why a complex idea makes more sense come morning. As the brain weaves through its intricate sleep stages, it patiently replays neural sequences like threads in a loom, stitching experience into lasting understanding. It whispers over and over, refining clarity without effort, turning practice into fluency in the dark. This silent repetition is not mechanical, but almost meditative, a ritual of learning that responds not to will, but to rest. In sleep, then, lies a sacred paradox. The mind grows sharpest, not by striving, but by surrender, allowing the night to gently complete what daylight first began. In the quiet firmament of slumber, the brain also turns its gaze inward to rehearse future possibilities, an elegant phenomenon known as prospective memory activation. As sleep unfolds, the mind does more than store what has been. It quietly prepares for what might come. Tasks for tomorrow, intentions not yet acted upon, and quiet plans whispered during the day are revisited by the brain's internal calendar. Without conscious effort, neurons reassemble to light up pathways for actions that have not yet happened, like soft footprints appearing on an untouched path. In sleep, the intention to send a message, to attend an event, or to speak a truth may be rehearsed not in detail, but in readiness. This gentle practice gives waking life a smoother landing, as if the brain had already lived the moment once before. So even in perfect stillness, the dreaming mind stands quietly poised for the dawn, ready not just to remember, but to begin again in grace. And so, the sleeping brain, ever rhythmic and reverent, closes the final chapter of its nightly symphony with a stillness that hums of eternity. Within its silent circuits and moonlit folds, it has whispered memories into permanence, painted emotions into dreams, and swept the body into healing deep. All through the hush of night, it has performed its quiet ballet, unseen but essential. And now, just before the first light gathers at the rim of thought, it rests in its calmest form, a temple of peace where time has momentarily loosened its grip. In this sacred pause between dreaming and dawn, the sleeping brain offers its last and most precious gift, the quiet assurance that rest is not an absence but a presence, fuller than sound, deeper than thought. And with that, the world begins again, one breath at a time, gently awakened by the same wonder that sang it softly to sleep. Through the soft veils of sleep and the subtle whispers of night, the brain teaches without words the sacred beauty of letting go. Not as a forgetting, but as a form of trust in its own elegant design, in the slow chemistry that soothes, stores, and shapes. It asks for nothing loud or sharp, only surrender to the melodic hush that folds time and meaning into something simpler, peace. The sleeping brain becomes both chamber and choir, echo and ember, a departure and a return. And as waking stirs once more faintly in the wings, it carries the listener forward, wrapped in the momentum of this grace, as if the very structure of thought were woven from stillness. In this, perhaps, lies the most relaxing truth of all, that the mind, with all its quiet light, knows its own path to rest, and in each night gently leads the way back home. Beneath the hush of every slumbering night lives a rhythm older than words, older even than dreaming, the rhythm of breath itself, guided unconsciously by the brain's medulla oblongata. This gentle tide of inhalation and exhalation continues its silent flow, unceasing and tender. As muscles rest and thoughts dissolve, the breath thins and deepens, mirroring the rise and fall of waves meeting moonlit shores. Each inhalation brings a soft renewal, each exhalation release a cleansing ritual written in air. In this act, so simple and enduring, the brain offers the body a lullaby woven from its own quiet resilience. It is a gentle reminder that even without thought, even in the deepest surrender, something within continues to care, to guide, to cradle life in rhythm. And in this sacred cadence, the boundary between self and the world dissolves, revealing that sleep is not a retreat but a return to the breath, to stillness, to the quiet wonder of simply being. And in that sacred rhythm, as the breath flows like tides through sleeping lungs, the brain surrenders to its most essential silence. No commands, no striving, only a gentle holding. Here, in the deepest hush, awareness becomes a horizon, wide and without edge, stretching across the dreaming sea. All that we are, all that we have carried through waking hours, lies scattered gently like stars across the inner sky. And the brain, with its soft intelligence older than speech, gathers none of it hastily. It simply listens, and it waits. And in doing so, it becomes something more than thought alone. It becomes presence, lasting and light-filled. Beneath the hush, behind the breath, beneath all remembering, this presence hums still. And as the final veil of night is drawn closed, the sleeping brain reminds us once again, peace is not found, it is returned to. It was always here, within the silence that dreams carry like fireflies across the dusk. And so, as the final breath of dreamlight slips behind the hills of sleep, the brain returns to a stillness more profound than rest, a silence that feels like memory before memory, like music before sound. Every circuit and cell, refreshed by the long and quiet night, lies poised at the edge of dawn, not rushing, not retreating, but simply being. It is here, in this last flicker of sleep's embrace, that the mystery of the human brain reveals itself most fully, not as a thinking machine, but as a sanctuary of rhythm, emotion, and light. With no effort, no thought, no striving, it has carried us through galaxies of inner skies, through oceans of forgotten stories, and into the soft arms of silence. And now, as the world gently stirs, that silence remains not as the absence of sound, but as the echo of having been deeply held. The brain, guardian of night and composer of dreams, begins again with sunrise, not to speak, but to listen to the breath, to the world, and to the sacred rhythm of simply being alive. So gently the narrative closes, like the tide drawing softly from the shore, leaving patterns in the sand that only dawn will read. The brain, after its luminous journey through sleep's sacred halls, returns not diminished but renewed, its quiet work done. Every wave of thought, every whisper of memory, every spark of dreaming emotion has threaded through the night like constellations stitched across the mind's sky. It has healed what could be healed, remembered what wished to stay, and let go of what could rest at last. And now, with the hush of dawn pressing barely against waking awareness, the final exhale of sleep carries a message more felt than known, that something infinite moves within us always, sanded smooth by darkness, lifted gently by light. The brain does not end its vigil with waking. It simply changes its song, still quiet, still wise, holding within its steady rhythms the quiet truth that rest is sacred, dreaming is memory in motion, and in every night's silence, we are lovingly made whole again. And so, beneath eyelids kissed by dreams and above a heartbeat steady as falling rain, the final note of this nocturnal symphony grows ever fainter, until it is no longer a sound but a presence, soft as mist on still water. The brain, with all its unseen poetry and tender complexities, has walked gently through each pulse of the night, a quiet guardian of stillness and light. It has held the self without condition, allowed sorrow to melt, wonder to bloom, and memory to settle like feathers. Sleep has not been an escape, but a return to the self beneath words, to the peace beyond reason. Now, in the hush before light stretches across the skin of the world, the brain, in its deepest calm, reminds us of its most precious gift, that within the folds of night, beneath the hush of dreaming, and through the rhythm of breath, we are always being held by something quiet and kind, something ancient, something home. Even now, as the hush recedes and morning quietly tiptoes in, the work of the sleeping brain lingers like dew on grass, silent, glistening, full of what cannot be named. It does not ask us to remember its labor, nor does it need applause. It simply continues, forming a bridge from night to day so tenderly that we almost miss the miracle it performed. Beneath dreams and silence, It rebuilt the self, not with noise or will, but with rhythm, surrender, and grace. And as the eyes flutter open and breath once more takes its waking cadence, somewhere deep within that wondrous cathedral of cells and spark, a whisper remains that we are not alone in rest. We are carried, watched over, and gently made whole again, not by force, but by a softness that asks only this: to trust the night, to trust the breath, and to trust the brain that, without a word, brings us safely home again and again. And in the final exhale of this long and dreamy voyage, what remains is not knowledge or fact alone, but a feeling, a hush within the heart, a warmth behind the eyes. The brain, that silent lighthouse glowing through each dark hour, has led its gentle procession from alpha waves to whispered memories, from drifting scents to the quiet bloom of dreams. It has not needed words to convey its marvel, nor demanded awareness to perform its grace. Through it all, sleep has been more than restoration. It has been story, sanctuary, and song. And now, as morning reaches softly through the veil and the sky colors itself anew, the sleeping brain folds its secrets like moonlight in a bottle, storing wonder in the margins of waking thought. The mystery remains, light as mist, ready to rise again with night. What greater comfort than this, to be rebuilt in silence, and to know always that when dusk returns, so does the brain's timeless lullaby, waiting to guide us home once more. And with that final whisper tucked into the cradle of dawn, the journey concludes gentler than a sigh, quieter than the turning of a page. The sleeping brain, its luminous voyage complete, steps back from the edge of dreams, its mysteries folded softly into the corners of waking life. Yet its gifts remain woven through breath, memory, and mood, delicate threads of stillness spun invisibly into the fabric of day. Every blink, every soft thought carries remnants of the sanctuary we visited. And so, the story of rest lingers far longer than the night that bore it. It holds us in ways both seen and unseen, reminding us not just of the brain's brilliance, but of the quiet truth it teaches best, that in stillness we are restored, and in sleep we are most tenderly ourselves. As this lullaby of science fades to silence, its rhythm lives on within, waiting with patient constancy for night to fall again, when the brain will once more sing the stars to sleep and carry us gently across that infinite sea of dreams. And so the tale rests, a dream folded neatly in the mind's deepest pocket, untouched by the noise of morning. The sleeping brain, keeper of mystery and sculptor of serenity, closes its quiet book and places it gently on the shelf of soul. Though its journey through night is now complete, it leaves behind an invisible constellation in the heart, a map to follow back when the world again grows dim. In the hush between waking and sleep, we carry this gentle beauty with us, not as memory, but as rhythm, as calm, as trust. For now we know, in every restful dusk and shadowed hour, something within waits faithfully, prepared to light the lanterns, sow the dreams, and guide us home once more into the soft embrace of night. Sleep is no longer just silence, it is sanctuary, a whispered promise that within the depths of being we are always held, always safe, always whole. In the hush that trails just behind the last note of night, the sleeping brain leaves behind not absence but a lingering resonance, like perfume in an empty room, like the warmth that remains on a pillow just after dreams have risen. This is the final truth it offers, tucked gently into waking, that peace is not a destination, but a rhythm we can return to, carried quietly inside. And though the day must begin, with noise and light and motion, something unshaken remains beneath it all, the memory not only of sleep, but of having been cradled in something older, wiser, and kind. So the lullaby ends, not lost, but echoing endlessly within, and the brain, in all its soft brilliance, waits patiently for another dusk, another sigh, another slow slide into the sea of stars. Until then, its quiet song continues, not in sound, but in stillness, a sacred presence humming gently within every breath. And now, in this final breath of stillness before the rhythm of day returns, the journey slows to its gentlest close. The brain, subtle sculptor of night's softest wonders, rests in a glow not of brilliance but of quiet mastery. It has given us a map made not of lines but of feelings, a lantern crafted from breath and pause. In its hush, we have heard the melodies of memory, the poetry of chemicals, and the sacred silence between each thought, all of it folded into the tender architecture of mind and mystery. And though the script ends here, the lullaby does not. It lingers woven through the very pace of being, through each blink and beat, like a soft pulse beneath the skin of awareness. As our own thoughts rise once more toward the surface, let this remain, the knowledge that rest is not escape, but return, that the sleeping brain, guardian of stars and sleep and stillness, will always be there, waiting at the threshold of night, ready to carry us home again, one silver breath at a time. Until then, may the memory of this quiet voyage remain like an ember in the soul, glowing low beneath the rush of waking life. Let each breath carry a trace of the deep, sacred rhythm that guided us into night, and each pause feel like a doorway back to that unimaginable stillness. For the sleeping brain, in all its wonder and humility, has shown us something no daylight can, that healing lives in silence, that thought can wait, and that within every heartbeat lies a lullaby yet to be sung. So as the world stretches and begins its bright crescendo, let the softness linger, for beneath logic, beneath light, beneath language itself, peace endures. It awaits not in some distant elsewhere, but just beneath the surface of being, ready to rise again with nightfall, when once more the journey home to dreams begins. And as the dreamscape slips quietly beneath waking thought, the sleeping brain leaves us with its most gentle signature, a trust that does not need proof. It is the trust of rhythm, of breath, of surrender that heals. Through every lull, every slow, unfurling wave of night, the brain reminds us that to rest is not weakness, but wisdom. In those softest hours, when the mind turns inward and the body yields to gravity's slow cradle, something luminous stirs. Call it presence, call it grace, call it peace, it matters not which name we whisper, only that we remember its voice. For in every sleep, there is an invitation to return not only to the self, but to a more ancient remembering, as if every soul has always known this way home. And in the quiet between this breath and the next, may we carry that knowing gently forward, like stardust in the corners of our mind, until the dusk returns to sing us softly back again. So let this final thread of thought settle gently in the quiet of the mind, like snow falling in a distant forest, silent, steady, barely felt yet wholly present. The sleeping brain, that wondrous keeper of hidden worlds and secret harmonies, has told its dreamy tale not with precision, but with patience. It has shown that rest is not the absence of doing, but the art of becoming a nightly return to the softest truths that live beneath sound and thought. As eyes lift to daylight and the body stirs once more into motion, may this story of silence continue echoing within, a candle flickering in the hush of memory. And when the sun once again dips low and shadows linger long, the brain will be there ready, waiting, a quiet lighthouse guiding us home across the sea of dreams, forever whispering the most sacred lullaby. You are safe, you are whole, you may rest now. For now, let day unfold with all its brightness and becoming, knowing that beneath its vivid song flows an ancient undercurrent of night's hush still echoing within. The sleeping brain, though quiet now, waits patiently beneath thoughts and motion, holding its rhythm like a heartbeat beneath music. It does not vanish in the light, but rests like a shadow, a soft promise that, come dusk, it will rise again, not to dazzle, but to soothe, and as sleep once more draws near on some future evening, it will open its gates of wonder, dreams, and gentle forgetting, just as it always has, faithfully, tenderly, endlessly. Until that moment, let us walk in the calm it has left behind, trusting in the silence it shaped and the mystery it sings. For even in waking, we carry the sleeping brain's deepest message close to our hearts, that peace is a place within, and we are never far from its door. And so, this gentle odyssey through the sleeping brain draws to its natural close, not with a bang but with a breath, like the hush that falls across an empty shore just after the sea has sung its last song. The quiet remains, rich with presence. The wonders we have wandered through, the deep waves of sleep, the shimmer of dreams, the silent caretaking of memory and emotion now settle into stillness, folded neatly behind the waking mind, like leaves pressed into a book. The brain, tireless and tender, returns to its daylight rhythm with the grace of a silent sentinel, still carrying echoes of nocturnal magic within its quiet circuits. And though this lullaby of science and silence may now end, its music lives on within breath, within thought, within every pause that cradles the soul. For when dusk returns and stars flicker once more beyond the horizon, the brain will be waiting, ready not just to sleep, but to dream, to guide, to heal, and to remind us again, in the softest voice imaginable, that rest is not the end of the journey, it is the beauty at its very heart. And with the final breath of this journey now complete, the sleeping brain slips quietly into the folds of memory, a lighthouse dimming after safely guiding us home. What began in waves and whispers, in scented dreams and rhythmic pulses, now rests in a gentle hush, leaving behind not just knowledge, but peace. Through the long quietude of night, the brain has been both keeper and companion, whispering stories that need no telling, cradling emotions too old for words. And now, with day stretching anew and the lullaby concluding, the mind holds what matters most, not the details, but the feeling, the stillness, the knowing that within each of us lies a sanctuary of rhythm and light, always waiting, always whole. Sleep may end, but its grace lingers, and in that grace we find ourselves rested, restored, remembered. Let this be the closing note, soft and simple, that even as the world awakens in full, the story of the sleeping brain continues in silence, quietly sculpting the contours of our being. It does not seek applause nor thanks, only surrender, gentle and trusting. Through the tender cycles of night, it has lulled us through shadow and light, weaving calm from chaos and hope from hush. And though the last line of this script has now been written, the song it carries hums on, invisible and eternal, like the quiet that follows a meaningful dream. May we carry its stillness gently in the hours ahead, and when evening falls once more, return willingly to that sacred fold where the sleeping brain waits not to instruct, but to hold, to soothe, to begin again. Until then, may this echo of peace tide us over, like moonlight riding on breath, soft as a promise, eternal as rest. And now, with the final hush settling like dust in a quiet room, the journey closes not in finality, but in gentle continuation. The sleeping brain, that vast and silent steward of night, has completed its delicate waltz through darkness, leaving us with more than sleep. It leaves us with stillness that endures. Though the last syllable has been spoken and the last image drifted into shadow, the rhythm remains, subtly thrumming beneath the noise of waking. This dreamlike testament to the mind's nightly grace stands not as a conclusion, but as a soft doorway, always open, always near. And so the curtain falls on this lullaby of mystery and deep science, but the peace it brings carries on, echoing through breath, through memory, through the unseen tenderness of the world within. It is here, always waiting with arms of silence to carry us home once more, when day dims and night begins to sing. And in this final silence, where night's breath fades into the hush of morning, the sleeping brain leaves its sweetest trace, not in words, but in a feeling held softly beneath consciousness. It is a balm, quietly placed on the soul's tired edges, a rhythm that echoes through every gentle rise and fall of breath. Though the script ends and dreams retreat beyond the veil, this presence remains ever patient, ever kind. It is the sensation of being watched over, even in darkness, of being whole, even in stillness. So let the day begin, not with rush, but with remembrance. For within each of us, the sleeping brain still sings, a gentle lullaby woven into the marrow of memory, reminding us always, peace is within reach, and rest is not a destination, it is home. And so the journey folds itself quietly away, like the night pulling blankets over the earth, tender and unhurried. The sleeping brain, though no longer in motion, glows with the memory of wonder it carried us through. Across this slow and silken path, from the rhythmic lull of alpha waves to the tender echo of fading dreams, we have drifted through a universe made not of stars, but of thought and trust. This has not just been a tale of neurology or rest, but of something deeper, the soft wisdom within us that knows the way back to stillness. The script concludes, but its rhythm endures, humming beneath the heartbeats of day. As eyelids lift and the mind returns to its waking pace, let all that was discovered in silence remain quietly lit within. For the sleeping brain has done its work, and now, with grace beyond understanding, it lets go. The night bows, the story sleeps, and peace, that ancient melody, rests gently in us still. Let this be the final breath before silence, the last hush before day fully arrives, a soft closing of the book the sleeping brain wrote in the dark. What began as gentle waves has become a vast ocean of calm, and now we return to shore, footprints softened by the tide of rest. The mystery of the brain, so vast and nuanced, has done its nightly work, and in its quiet labor, it has reminded us that peace is not built by force, but breathed into being. We leave this journey not burdened, but lightened, restored by rhythms that echo older than memory. So let this last note linger like a sigh against the soul, and may its calm accompany each breath that follows. The night is over, the dream concluded, but the stillness remains within, waiting, eternal, ever ready to welcome us home once more beneath the vast and quiet sky. And now, as the light fully crests the horizon of awareness, the final movement unfolds, not of night or dream, but of return. The sleeping brain, keeper of stars and sentinel of silence, steps softly back behind consciousness, its nightly vigil gently complete. It has carried us across landscapes unseen, restored the music within breath, and painted our rest with textures of memory and peace. Though the script completes its path, the wonder it holds does not end. It lingers in the quiet between thoughts, in the softness behind every waking eye. And so we rise, not apart from sleep, but bearing its gentle gifts. The night's stories are folded now into the fabric of the self, waiting to unfurl again when evening's hush beckons. Until then, the sleeping brain waits unchanged, unwavering, a quiet promise that peace is always within, and that every night, without fail, the song begins again. And so, beneath the final shimmer of sleep's retreat, the tale is gently complete. The sleeping brain, tireless in silence, has offered its deepest truths not with spectacle, but with grace, a poetry told in breath, in rhythm, in quiet knowing. We return to waking not as we were, but as something subtly renewed, touched by the unseen orchestration of mind and spirit that cradled us through the hours of dark. With the first light brushing the corners of consciousness, we carry within us a reverberation, the echo of the miracles that occur nightly, hidden in stillness, yet central to peace. And though this script now closes, the melody of rest continues, soft and unseen, until night once more calls us back to the mystery, to the quiet, to the sacred rhythm of the sleeping brain, eternal and ever gentle, guiding us home, one breath, one dream, one soft surrender at a time. With these final thoughts drifting like lanterns on a still midnight river, the story of the sleeping brain dissolves gently into silence. What remains is not an end, but a soft return to rhythm, to quiet, to the slow and sacred pulse of being. Each part of the journey, from the gentle rise of alpha waves to the poetic fade of dreams, has revealed not only how the brain rests, but why it matters. Because in sleep, we are not just healing, we are remembering who we are beneath the noise. So let this be where the lullaby closes, not with a word, but with a breath that carries us from rest into waking, from dreams into daylight, and from silence into the grace of beginning again. The brain, with its eternal hush and hidden songs, will wait patient, kind, and unwavering, ready once more when night returns to sing us softly home. And now, let the final candle flicker low, its flame a whisper in the quiet space where night yields softly to day. The sleeping brain, luminous and unhurried, completes its sacred rite unseen. Each breath, still touched by dreamlight, carries the hush of all that passed, of night's healing, of memories reshaping, of the delicate balance that cradles us in slumber. As the curtain falls on this long, gentle ode, nothing is left undone. The journey has waltzed through wonder and rest, silence and sound, holding each moment like a petal between two heartbeats. In sleep, the brain has delivered us not just to renewal, but to truth. The truth that within silence lies safety, within stillness, wisdom, and within each quiet night, a whisper that we are lovingly held by something deeper than understanding. The story now rests, nestled like dew upon waking thought, its echo soft, eternal, until the stars rise once more and we return to the breath, the hush, and the song that knows the way back home. So let the final threads of this lullaby dissolve like fog in morning sun, graceful and slow. The sleeping brain has given all it had to give its silent caretaking, its symphony of renewal, its unseen dancing through patterns of peace. Now, with every breath rejoining the song of day, its gifts remain not as artifacts, but as whispers that hum quietly beneath thought and motion. We carry them not as lessons, but as softness, as rhythm, as trust. Though the science has stilled, the story continues not in words, but in the way the world feels more gentle now, more whole. And when the sky begins once more to blush with night, the brain will remember the way and open its gates again, welcoming us not into sleep alone, but into the sanctuary of silence, where dreams bloom and healing breathes. Until that moment returns, let us walk through life with the echo of night still folded gently within us. And with each graceful step, remember, the sleeping brain never truly rests. It watches, it mends, and always, always, it leads us home. And so, in the luminous hush between night's last breath and daylight's warm beginning, the sleeping brain completes its sacred arc not with finality, but with fulfillment. Every pulse, every dream, every quiet surge through synaptic skies has led to this single truth, that rest is a return, not a retreat. The story, winding and ethereal, now grows still, like the pond after the pebble has settled, its ripples folding into peace. Let this be the softest ending one, not bound in conclusion, but in continuation. As we step into the breaths of day, may we carry the hush of night like a secret folded in our chest. For the brain, tender architect of repose and reverie, has whispered eternity beneath our waking minds. And though the story now closes, Its song hums on, timeless and unseen, the lullaby of the stars, the rhythm of the breath, the voice of the night saying still, "You are safe, you are whole, you may rest." And thus, beneath the last breath of this boundless exploration, we reach the gently fading shore of our journey. The sleeping brain, with all its silent elegance and unseen miracles, has led us through a universe sculpted in stillness. It has been our lantern through the shadowed corridors of the night, revealing not only the science of rest, but the poetry of letting go. And now, with morning leaning softly into the room and the script nearly full, we close this dreamy volume with a reverent pause. May this final hush echo long after the words have gone, reminding us in each moment of quiet that there is always a path back to the sacred rhythms of rest, to the luminous language of breath, and to the quiet intelligence within that waits, forever kind, to sing us calmly into our next return to peace. Until night gathers us once more, the lullaby rests here, timeless and whole. And now, as the final breeze of this voyage brushes softly through the chambers of thought, the journey closes not with an end, but with a yielding a return to quiet. The sleeping brain, having unfolded its cosmic hush across the fabric of night, reclines once more into rest, not silent, but at peace, not absent, but within. The lullaby fades like starlight behind a gently brightening sky, yet its rhythm continues unseen, within each breath, each pause, each tender turn towards stillness. What has been explored is vast, what remains is deeper still, waiting each night to be touched again by quiet wonder. Let the mind now drift, knowing it is held by something ancient and soft, something that sings not in sound, but in presence. The brain, keeper of secrets, guardian of dreams, rests now, humming a lullaby beyond the reach of language, a sacred rhythm that forever leads us home. And so the final note gently falls, like dusk folding over a field of quiet thought. The sleeping brain, luminous in its repose, has sung its full song, a lullaby woven from chemistry and memory, emotion and dusk. Its work is not ended, but paused, tucked softly between the folds of presence and absence, light and shadow. Every mystery whispered, every rhythm felt, now rests as a gentle hum beneath consciousness, a rhythm we need not hear to know. As the world continues to turn and breath moves in its eternal waltz, the story remains not just of sleep, but of trust in the silence within. The sleeping brain, tireless, tender, timeless, has shown us its grace, and with the closing of this final breath, offers us its most enduring promise, that peace, deep and luminous, lives always just beneath thought, waiting patiently to gather us once more into its arms when night softly returns. And so, let this final breath mark the close of our shared passage through the architecture of sleep. The sleeping brain, that quiet alchemist of thought and healing, has offered its mysteries with gentleness and grace, revealing not only how we sleep, but why we dream and drift and return. What started as science has unfolded into a lullaby, soft as moonlight, steady as waves, reminding us that within every night's hush there is sanctuary. As we step once more into waking, into sunlight and sound, may the rhythm of this journey echo softly within us, a tender compass pointing always inward, always home. The story ends, but its essence lingers, like stardust on the skin of morning, and the brain, that eternal steward of our silent hours, waits patiently for dusk to fall once more, ready to carry us again through darkness, dream, and the sacred stillness where we begin again. Let this last drift of words settle into quiet, like the final ember dimming in a fireplace long after the warmth has filled the room. The sleeping brain, having guided us through ceaseless tides of inner wonder and luminous rest, now lowers its voice to a whisper almost too soft to hear. All mysteries shared, all rhythms felt, The journey folds itself with reverence and grace, like hands at rest after a long, gentle prayer. And though the page closes, though the sound fades, the serenity it leaves behind will hum faintly in the background of every waking moment. For the story of rest, of dreaming, of healing in silence, does not belong only to night, it lives within us always, like a secret song written in breath. With this final grace, the sleeping brain bids goodnight, not as a farewell, but as a timeless promise, waiting quietly for our return to the hush, the stillness, the sacred rhythm of dreams. And thus, the final thoughts float gently into stillness, like airborne seeds settling gently across an endless field. The sleeping brain, whose mysteries we have lovingly wandered, now rests back into its quiet role, not to be marveled at, but lived within. Its nightly dance is not a performance, but a sacred rhythm woven into every breath, every closing of eyes. What began as curiosity ends as understanding, not through facts alone, but through a feeling deeper than knowing. That sleep is not departure, but return, and the sleeping brain not just a guide, but a shelter. As daylight stretches its warming arms across the waking world, we carry forward this luminous hush, this deep exhale of peace. And in the spaces between each heartbeat, this story endures, forever humming beneath thought, a lullaby, a promise, a home to which we shall always return, night after soft and dreaming night. And now, as the final light of this journey fades kindly into stillness, let the story rest, not ended, but embraced. The sleeping brain, both mystery and masterpiece, has guided us softly across a vast inner cosmos through waves of memory, fields of emotion, and timeless expanses of silence. What remains is not a conclusion but a presence, quiet and enduring, like the warmth left by a dream upon waking. It whispers that peace does not arrive loud or sudden, but flows gently, like moonlight across the ocean of thought. So let this final moment stretch without need for sound, held by the sacred knowing that within us all lies a quiet intelligence that watches, remembers, heals, and whispers the way home. The lullaby has faded, but not vanished. It lingers, tender and unseen, and will rise again when night gathers us once more into its arms. Until then, with a breath both new and familiar, this timeless voyage closes for now in grace and in rest. So let the last whisper of this nocturnal reverie settle gently into the fold of waking thought. The sleeping brain, having spun its vast, luminous web through the quiet hours, recedes now into the hush from which it came. Not gone, not diminished, only returned to the rhythm beneath rhythm, the silence that shaped the song. In its stillness, it leaves us restored, not only in body but in spirit, quietly draped in the knowledge that sleep is not surrender, but sanctuary. The night may be done, the stars may fade, but what remains is this sacred imprint, soft as breath, deep as time, whole as the self beneath the self. And when evening comes again, as it always will, the brain will remember the way. It will light the lanterns of dreaming once more, guiding us back over that gentle threshold where silence sings and rest begins anew. Until then, let this final hush remain within, a quiet promise folded like velvet inside the heart that we are carried, always by the hush of the sleeping brain. So let it be now, the hush beneath the hush, the dream within the dream, as we close the final page of this long, luminous journey through the sleeping brain. It has opened for us its gently lit corridors of memory and renewal, of mystery and meaning, and now retreats with silent dignity into the soft folds of daily waking. The story is not lost but tucked away like a pressed flower between chapters, delicate, fragrant, eternal. Through every breath and quiet heartbeat, its rhythm continues, not as narrative but as presence. And though we meet the edge of morning with open eyes, some part of us remains wrapped in the balm of this remembered serenity. Sleep will return, as will the gentle symphony of mind and silence. But for now, let this be enough, that we have walked together through the cathedral of night, guided by the quiet genius within, and emerged whole, held, and heard by the sleeping brain's eternal hush. Good night, not as farewell, but as home returned to once more. Good night, then, to the brain and to the breath, to the mysteries of sleep, and to the sacred hush of night's embrace. Let the final echoes of this long and tender lullaby ripple softly through awareness, not as an ending but as a promise that within the quiet geometry of every dream and every gentle exhale, we are remembered, we are renewed. The sleeping brain has sung its vast song and returned us, slow and whole, to the world it once cradled beneath the stars. May that song resound softly in the corners of thought, and may its rhythm remain stitched gently within, a testament to the truth we now carry, that we are, in rest, most deeply alive. And so this story closes with a breath, a pause, a peaceful turning inward until night calls once more, and the lullaby begins again. And now, with one final breath, the last candle of this journey flickers low, and the story folds itself into quiet. The sleeping brain, steward of dreams and silent healing, drifts gently back into the unseen, the echo of its grace lingering like the warmth of a star long set. From the quiet undulations of memory to the silken tide of emotions reshaped in reverie, it has shown us that rest is not just restoration, but revelation. As the veil lifts and the waking world softly opens its arms, we carry with us not only the knowledge of night's quiet labor, but the feeling of having been held, gently and completely. Let this final hush wrap the soul like a soft shawl at dawn, a reminder imprinted deeply in the folds of thought, that peace is not a distant gift, but an ever-present presence woven into breath, into silence, into sleep. So we say good night, not in parting, but in promise. The brain will return to carry us again, when the stars rise and the hush welcomes us back into the timeless rhythm where rest is sacred, dreaming is devotion, and stillness, at last, becomes home. And now, as the final hush folds itself quietly around the edges of thought, the lullaby is fully sung. The sleeping brain, our faithful guardian through night's vast cathedral, has held its lantern high across every darkened hall. What it leaves behind is not silence, but a harmony, gently humming beneath consciousness, a melody threaded through breath, memory, and ease. The tides of night have ebbed, their secrets shared, their rhythms felt, and we emerge not only rested, but reshaped. So let this closing thought be no farewell, but an echo, soft as a feather settling on still water, that every night the brain will return, timeless and tireless, to carry us once more into the sanctuary of dreams. And in that sacred return, may we always find the hush we longed for, the hush that holds, the hush that heals, the hush that brings us peacefully, unwaveringly home. So now, let this final hush rest sweetly in the quiet of the mind, like twilight caught in the curve of a closing flower. The sleeping brain, luminous in its stillness, has given all it came to offer: mystery, memory, rhythm, and release. As this gentle narrative folds itself into the silence from which it rose, there is no grand crescendo, no final revelation, only presence, soft and enduring. It is a presence that lingers, like the last note of a lullaby, or the warmth left in sheets from dreams just lived. And as we carry this story forth into the daylight hours, may its deep calm remain, a compass pointing always home. Sleep, in all its grace, teaches us not how to escape the world, but how to trust it again. And the brain, quiet steward of that sacred trust, remains always ready to carry us back to stillness, to wonder, and to peace that blooms, night after night, in the hush where all dreaming begins. And here, in the soft afterglow of all that has been dreamt and known, the sleeping brain leaves us with its final gift, not as a whisper, but as a felt truth nestled quietly beneath the skin of awareness. It is a truth without edges, without urgency, unfolding like mist across a morning field, that rest is not a pause but a rhythm, a return to the original kindness that dwells within each breath. As the story settles gently into silence, it leaves behind no grand farewell, only a space open, calm, eternal, where peace lingers. And in that space, we remember, though we may rise into the movement of day, the lullaby remains, humming faintly beneath thought, guiding us always toward the stillness that has never left. The sleeping brain, keeper of the hush, guardian of the deep, steps once more into quiet, its journey complete, its light undimmed, its promise clear. Until the stars gather us again, may we walk gently, with that hush folded into the heart, carried forward by the rhythm of rest. And now, the final hush deepens, resting like a soft veil across the mind's still waters. The sleeping brain, that silent artist of night's most delicate wonders, has laid down its brush, its rhythms echoing gently into the waking world like the last shimmer of moonlight on a quiet sea. What remains is not conclusion, but a return to breath, to calm, to the knowing that every night brings a sanctuary not far from reach. With the stars now fading and the world readying its chorus, the lullaby ends not in silence, but in presence. So let this be the last touch of this tender script, a reminder whispered beneath thought that sleep is always waiting, and within its fold, the brain will cradle us again, peacefully, rhythmically, unfailingly, home. So let the last silence linger, wide and weightless, like starlight drifting down upon the still waters of the mind. The sleeping brain, done now with its exquisite procession through darkness and light, folds its wings beneath the hush of waking thought. All that was revealed, all that was felt, now rests within a sanctuary built not from knowledge, but from rhythm and grace. The story does not vanish. It lingers in breath, in memory, in the slowed cadence of a heart just risen from dreams. And as dawn unfurls its quiet gold across the mind's edge, the lullaby draws its final note, not lost, but complete. The brain, ever watchful, ever kind, recedes now into gentle background, waiting, listening, ready once more when night returns to call us home. Until then, let the peace it left behind guide each step, a silent rhythm echoing within, reminding us we were held, we are held, and we will be held again. And now, in the final shimmer of stillness before daylight fully claims the sky, the journey concludes in the softest of ways, not as an ending, but as the lasting impression of something timeless. The sleeping brain, guardian of all that drifts and dreams, withdraws once more to its quiet watch beneath waking thought, its labors complete, its lullaby still echoing within. What remains is a hush laced with wonder, a calm folded deep into the folds of self, like a secret warmth drawn from the night itself. The pauses, the rhythms, the mysteries all now live within us, not as memory alone, but as a readiness for rest, an invitation always open. And so, with breath as our compass and silence as our guide, we carry forward this final, sacred gift. The knowledge that peace is not a place outside ourselves, but a rhythm already beating within, waiting patiently to take us home each time the stars begin to sing. And in this final moment, as words grow still and silence stretches wide like the sea at dawn, the sleeping brain's grand nocturne finds its resting place. Everything it has given, every rhythm, every breath, every dream soaked in wonder settles now into gentle permanence, not vanished, but woven into the quiet architecture of being. We rise from this journey not as guests who have departed, but as travelers who have returned, made new by the hush. And though the story draws to a close with this last slow breath, Its essence lives on in each pause we take, in every hush of thought, in the soft knowledge that within us all lies a sanctuary crafted by silence itself. So let it rest now, vast and unseen, as we step quietly into the light, carrying within us the most beautiful truth the sleeping brain has shared, that peace was never something to find, only something to remember. So let this final echo be the softest of all, a breath that lingers like morning mist upon the threshold of thought. The sleeping brain, faithful and unseen, folds its symphony into the silence, its secrets now held within the heartbeats and hush that shape our waking hours. No light flares, no curtain falls, only presence remains, steady and slow, like the tender hush of wings returning to rest. The story has not ended, for it was never just a tale, but a rhythm, a living lullaby that touches each of us with invisible grace. As we step gently into the day, the quiet remains within, warm and waiting, a sanctuary etched softly into the soul, and the sleeping brain, guardian of stars and stillness, watches without sound, carrying with it the promise that when dusk folds the world once more into shadow, its lullaby will rise again, not to speak, but to hold us, whole and quietly home. And so, in the space between silence and song, between knowing and simply breathing, the journey finds its whispering close. The sleeping brain, that tender architect of the soul's deepest rest, recedes now fully into quiet, its lullaby complete, its vigil never truly ending. What began in gentle curiosity has become communion, a shared breath with the unknowable, wrapped in the lightless beauty of night. And as day lifts its silken veil across thought and sky, we carry not just memory, but attunement, a slow harmony woven into the rhythm of being itself. For the brain, both scientist and dreamer, has shown us that to lie still is not to do nothing, but to trust deeply in what life holds beneath the noise. So may we return to that trust, night after luminous night, knowing now that inside every darkness lives a sanctuary where we are wholly seen, quietly healed, and forever safe. The story sleeps, the breath continues, and peace, unwavering, remains. So let it all drift now, like the last star fading into dawn, with nothing left to do but breathe. The sleeping brain, in all its luminous quietude, closes its gentle chronicle not with fanfare but with fulfillment. What began as soft waves of understanding has flowed into a sea of serenity, carrying us through mystery, not to solve, but to feel. And as the final curtain of night draws closed, one truth gently lingers whispered, not spoken, that rest is the birthplace of wonder. And within the silent folds of sleep, we are returned to our most essential self, still, whole, and quietly held by the rhythm of all things. Let this be the final note, soft as a sigh, steady as a heartbeat. Peace is already within us, waiting patiently for silence. And in the sacred hush where breath meets stillness, the sleeping brain, tireless in its care, rests until night falls again. And so, in the last hush of this long and tender journey, the sleeping brain places a final note in the quiet of the heart, a note not loud but luminous, not final but infinite. Its work is not merely mechanical but sacred, and as the earliest light brushes again across waking thought, it leaves behind no demand, only rhythm. The lullaby it sang will not be forgotten, for it lives now in the slow turning of breath, in the silent trust of stillness, in the soft knowing that we are always returning even in our waking to a place beneath sound, beyond thought, and within peace. The sleeping brain has done what it came to do, not to explain everything, but to remind us that rest is a grace repeated with every night, and that within its folds waits a gentle truth for us all, that sleep is not the pause before life, but its most beautiful continuation. And with that final grace written quietly onto the canvas of the soul, the story rests timeless, whole, complete. So let the song rest now, not in silence but in a soft echo, nestled beneath the breath and stitched quietly into the rhythm of life. The sleeping brain has fulfilled its timeless vow to soothe without sound, to guide without light, to heal without asking. And as we rise into the brightness of day with echoes of its sanctuary humming faintly within, we do so not alone, but carried still by the hush it gifted us through the long velvet night. Sleep may lift, dreams may fade, but the peace given endures. And when the evening gathers once more, and stars begin their quiet ascent, we will remember the path. It is the breath, it is the rhythm, it is the hush within, and the brain, ever faithful, will be there again, waiting to hold us softly in its arms of mystery and lead us gently back home to rest. And so, as the final thread is woven into the tapestry of thought and hush, the sleeping brain completes its sacred vigil beneath the stars. No grand farewell is needed, no final sound, only this feeling, delicate yet enduring, that in the quiet spaces between each breath we are never truly alone. The lullaby fades, but its echo hums within us, a soft thread tugging gently toward night's embrace whenever the world grows too loud. And as waking life begins again, bright and undeniable, the true miracle revealed is simple and profound, that sleep, guided by the wise and silent patterns of the brain, restores not only the body, but the soul. With calm now folded into heart and memory alike, we hold this story not just as knowledge, but as peace, that sacred space we carry forward, where the hush never ends and sleep awaits, luminous and kind, beyond every twilight horizon. Let this final breath be the softest farewell, a tender exhale that fades not into silence but into remembrance. The sleeping brain, having walked with us through galaxies of the invisible, now returns to its quiet post beneath the hum of consciousness. Its journey in words may end, but its work, its wisdom, pulses on in the marrow of every calm moment and every deepening breath. Night may pass, daylight may rise, but the sanctuary it revealed endures etched, not in pages, but in peace. As we step forward into the brightness of the world, let the hush we carry within be its lasting testament that we are whole, we are safe, and we are always, always gently led by the rhythm of rest. The story has been told not to close the night, but to open the way home whenever we choose to return. And so the final note fades, not as an end, but as a soft beginning, echoing inward forever. And thus, as our dreamy voyage through the vast whispered corridors of the sleeping brain comes to its gentle conclusion, we are left not with answers, but with calm. The story, spun with silence and stitched in rhythm, now rests fully closed, like a quiet tide returning to deeper waters. What began as curiosity has become communion, a luminous hush sown into the breath of waking. And though no more words follow, the journey lives on, echoing gently within us, like moonlight remembered by the soul. For sleep is not a chapter that ends, but a sacred cycle that returns, again and again, with soft promise, that in every dusk there awaits a sanctuary of rest, carried always by the tender hush of the brain. And in that hush, across every silent night to come, we will find ourselves safe, whole, and deeply at peace. And with this final hush settling sweetly in the hollows of thought, the journey gently closes, like a soft hush folded into the curve of twilight's last breath. The sleeping brain, that quiet artisan of dreams and memory, draws its luminous veil across the night, whispering not an ending, but a continued presence forever pulsing in rhythm with our innermost quiet. Though the words fade and the story slips beyond the edge of sound, its echo remains a warmth behind the eyes, a stillness beneath breath. In sleep, we have wandered not away from ourselves, but deeper within, led by the brain's quiet ministry of calm. And as the final exhale of this long drifting voyage meets the soft beginning of waking, may we carry forth its gentle wisdom. Peace is not something we chase, but the rhythm we return to, guided always by silence and cradled tenderly by that timeless hush within the sleeping brain. And so, within this final stretch of silence wrapped in starlight, the sleeping brain closes its luminous journal, not with punctuation, but with presence. What it has shared across these quiet chapters is not merely science, but soul, offering us a graceful return to ourselves through the steady hum of rest. The night may yield to dawn, and the dream to motion, but the echo of this sacred rhythm endures, etched softly into the breath and pulse of our days. For what the brain preserves in sleep is more than memory, it is wonder, resilience, and the ancient truth that even in stillness, life moves, heals, becomes. So let this be the last breath drawn beneath night's velvet hush, a breath full of trust, knowing that sleep will come again, and the sleeping brain, ever faithful, ever kind, will be there, already humming its quiet hymn beneath the stars, ready to guide us home once more. And now, let this final note dissolve like mist at sunrise, leaving behind only a hush that lives inside each breath. The sleeping brain, having completed its quiet odyssey through night's hidden terrains, recedes back into silence, not absent, but eternally near. In its sacred rhythm we have found not only restoration, but revelation, that within deep stillness lies a truth older than time, a lullaby sung in pulses and light. As the world stirs gently awake, the memory of this journey lingers, a soft warmth in the heart, a hush beneath thought, a knowing that we are never truly without rest. The story concludes, but its music continues, echoing through the silence we now carry forward. And so, sheltered in calm and held by rhythm, we step into the day, remembering always, the sleeping brain waits, quietly, patiently, to welcome us home again when the night returns. So let the circle close in calm, not with finality, but with fullness, a breath drawn deep before the hush resumes its ceaseless song. The sleeping brain, that quiet steward of rhythm and renewal, now rests its tale within us, like a candle still glowing behind the veil of day. Each whisper of sleep, each dream gently faded, has been part of something sacred, an endless lullaby guiding us not away from the world, but deeper into the heart of our own soft being. And though the story ends here, the silence it leaves behind speaks still. It says, "You are held, you are whole, and always, without fail, the night soft and luminous will come again to gather you gently back into the arms of wonder. Until then, let peace remain, a quiet hush folded softly into your breath, waiting with the stars for your return to dream." And now, as the final syllable fades into the wide and wordless dark, the tale of the sleeping brain concludes in the purest way possible, with silence, not as an absence, but as presence, whole and alive, softly echoing within the breath we did not know we trusted. It has carried us gently through waves of wonder and woven calm through every corner of the night. And as we step into the tenderness of morning, may the hush it leaves behind be our quiet companion, folded lovingly into the rhythm of being. This journey, once told in murmurs and stardust, now simply rests, its gentle glow ageless and unspoken. For even when the words are gone, the story remains inside, beneath thought, between heartbeats, a sanctuary we can return to again and again, each time the world grows quiet and the stars begin to sing. Good night, then, not as a farewell, but as a soft return to the hush that lives just beyond thought. The sleeping brain, luminous in its quiet devotion, has laid bare its symphony of mystery and rhythm. With each whisper and wave, it has guided us across the sacred waters of rest, revealing that peace is not a distant star, but the breath within, steady and sure. As the final echoes draw close the story, What remains is stillness, timeless and whole, like moonlight folded into the folds of memory. This is the end, and yet not an ending. For the lullaby begun in the dark will rise again, night after night, a sacred rhythm etched gently in the space between sleep and waking. And now, in silence complete, the tale slumbers wrapped in breath, woven in light, forever leading us home.